a man with one microphone who says he bought Disney Plus for the kids. Welcome to the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another session of the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. In today's session, we are returning back to the interview with John Hanson of Confidential Music. And this is part two, and in this part, we get deep into John's process for writing for customs. Confidential Music have a hugely successful run of custom writing. Now, any of you who have done customs, you will understand how difficult they are to do. Not only do right, but do well. And also you can do a good custom job, but it doesn't mean you're going to land the placements. And John and his team at Confidential, they consistently land huge placements, and hearing John's process in writing, I completely understand why. It's wonderful, a wonderfully thought-provoking approach to composition. And then we dive into, obviously, the quickfire round, which is plugins and go-to gear, basically. And then John finishes the interview imparting some absolute absolute pearls of wisdom for you. So you'll have to wait till the end to hear that, obvs. So anyway, let's dive into the interview. So, John, new release, 7 tracks, track 1 on the 3rd album of the year. What's your... This is going on along the numbers geek line. Yeah, that's it. What's your process for writing a new track?
Oh, that's a great question. A track that's built for the release. It's made for that. A lot of tracks now too have an origin from being custom cues that were not used. So they're repurposed or like built into something new. It kind of like start there. But if it's specific for the release, it normally starts with an idea that is like a conceptual like plan, it'd be cool to do a track that's just like quiet, like based around choir or whatever, like that builds in this way, or that kind of has that Arvo Pärt kind of feel, or that has like this feel, or like you'll hear something like, oh, what if you did this like this thing with like the strings or whatever, and just base it around that. It's always kind of like based on an idea, I'd say. I rarely would just start something and be like, okay, let's do a trailer track. That just keeps getting bigger. Kind of like I want to like try an idea, so it's like based on one element, really, like an offbeat choir. What if you do that, like just like everybody, you hear it in a song or something. Oh, that'd be dope in a trailer track, like just like base it all around that.
So the ideas are always music related. They're not like a visual concept, not like trailers represented by mandalas, or
okay, so that's if I'm starting something from scratch. It's kind of like like a more of like, oh, that would be cool, like a musical idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. But however, a lot of these starting from now custom tracks, because of just a lot of content beginning in that place and like being built around, those are then built around ideas. Around picture and around story and around, so those start in a more like, okay, this person is in China and they're this and they're this and this is their story, and you're building that kind of like space. And then now you have a track that's kind of built around that story idea, and then say it doesn't get used in this custom area, you pull it out and you're like, oh, this sounds like an ethnic whatever, and I'm going to go off of that, you know.
So it's really nice to hear you talk about it like that, because earlier on in the interview you were saying about how, you know, you initially went into this saying, when I grow up I'm going to be a film composer, and the way you're talking about doing custom work, that's the language of a film composer. You know, let's talk about the story, you know, let's talk about the characters, let's talk about the overarching narrative of this, you know, whereas, you know, some other people's approach, my approach is very different to that. I mean, I don't, for me, it's often not character based. For me, it's landscapes.
Oh,
like I think of the landscape I'm in, like, okay, what's this sound going to, where's it going to be in the landscape? What's it representing? It's not like a massive giant in the distance, you know, or a tiny little pixie up here, you know.
Oh, that's cool.
So I suppose there are characters, but it's kind of like a painting. So, you know, like, do you remember what was the name of the American guy who used to do the painting? The Bob.
Oh, Bob Ross.
Yeah, Bob Ross. Thank you.
And you do them so quick, and you'll be like, "Are you kidding me?"
That's it. That's it. You want to go like, here you go.
Yeah, just do a little of this and a little of that.
Exactly. That's how I like to think I'm approaching like composing. There's a nice little wash here, and I'm going to give this little horn a little friend here, a little trombone, sort of thing. It's.
I love that. That's awesome. Like the Bob Ross of composers.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, I aspire to that, you know.
That's amazing.
I need to get the wig and change my setup a little bit, but I'll get.
Oh, you're already doing like the classes, so you're like more than halfway there.
Yeah, that's it. Nice graphic score going on here.
Yeah.
Right. I keep getting sidetracked. What was
no problem.
Okay, so
yeah, one of the interesting ones was actually with Star Wars, because that started in an interesting way, where I was working with the editor, Josh Dunn, and he was thinking very early in the process, what is this going to be? And thinking through all the themes that have already been done, and like both of us kind of arriving on Han and Leia's theme, and then being like, okay, and he's like, yes, great theme, do a trailer cue from the theme, you know. And so
which trailer was this? Was this for the Force Awakens?
That's for the Force Awakens. I think it's like the trailer 2 or something. There was like teaser 1, teaser 2, trailer 1, trailer 2 or something to that effect.
Yeah, I think.
But
did they use Leia's theme on trailer 1 as well? Did they not? Or was I might even be thinking of your cue actually.
Maybe. Yeah, it's very deconstructed. It starts with the piano.
The cue comes in, that, you know, the big orchestration of the theme comes in as the Millennium Falcon sweeps down.
Yes, that's my cue.
Okay, yeah. Bloody great. Yeah.
I mean, that was complicated because it's such a romantic theme, and you're trying to make it an action movie. We actually had a whole like full cue that was all Leia's theme, and they ended up for the back end cutting to another cue which had the Force theme at the end, which does work better in context, I think. Because the Leia's theme is just so romantic, and it's very difficult to make a romantic sweeping feel into an action cue.
Yeah. Well, you did a great job. Well, I think it's that leap of the sixth. You know, it's really hard to make those, you know, not sound lovely and romantic.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're in the canon as a romance theme.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. My heart is in.
I know, exactly. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so let's just I want to give you a hypothetical situation, because I haven't quite got what I want from you yet, John. So
okay.
The hypothetical, we're scrapping the album one because I want to go on the custom. You've just been given a custom for, let's say, I was going to say Wes Anderson movie. That wouldn't work. Let's go for Taken 7.
Take a 7. Yep.
Yeah.
There'll be one.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Eventually, they'll get there. So, what would be your process for a custom queue?
I'd first ask what they want.
Right. Okay. Yeah. We want something.
I say that like I want to listen as much as possible to what the client wants, because, for instance, there's been movies where 2 to 3 clients will contact me on the same movie at the same time. And when that happens, it's really not about, it's about the movie, but it's about the client's vision, because the client is trying to make the movie say something and direct it in a certain way. They're trying to show that their concept for the movie, to sell the movie, is the best concept. Like, this is the best way to sell this. And so figuring out what they want from it directs the output. So I can have 3 very different trailer cues for the same movie, because they have a different vision. And so for me, it's very important to understand that their vision is. I feel like the customs that go ahead.
You're talking about the client you're talking about is the trailer house, right?
The trailer house, yeah.
Yeah.
Or the supervisor, or whoever it is.
Yeah.
But I feel like the best ones come from the ones who have clarified their vision the most. You kind of know when a trailer brief is not great, or when a vision is kind of like, I don't know, this is a bad idea. And you also know when it's a great idea, right? Mm-hmm. The story behind the Suicide Squad trailer, with I Started a Joke, is pretty simple, but it's a great idea. Like, so we're having drinks with Bobby Gum, and he's like, wouldn't this cue, or wouldn't this song, I Started a Joke, it's a random B-side like Bee Gees song, be great as a trailer cue? Like, if you did this, and if you like slowed it down and it was like this, and then, so I go, that's an amazing song, and let's do it. And then for me, it's like, at that point, it's taking the idea and melding it with what the concept of the movie is, because the movie is this kind of like backwards, like the villains are the heroes, and they're kind of like, they're on a death mission and this and that, right? So then I listened to this song and noticed that, we have this like descending line that plays throughout the chord progression. So what if we just like concentrate on that, because this is all going into descent. So for that, if you notice, everything is like constantly going from high, and it's kind of like piling down, but it's all going through that progression. So you're able to put in ideas from that movie and bring them out of specific vision, like things. And so like that's where kind of like the wonder of the poetic type of nature of this art comes in really strong, is when those two things converge, and those are based on good ideas.
I was going to say, they're the good trailers when those two things work out. See, also hearing you talk about it, it kind of makes me realize why you're so good at customs. the listening, but also taking your role seriously. I find customs so stressful, because I end up getting to the position where I'm worrying too much that I'm not going to produce something that the client wants. And then I kind of get, rather than trusting my own intuition, I know I can do this because I land trailers regularly, but when I'm in a custom position, I'm like, what if I failed?
Yes. And go ahead.
Well, I was also going to say, sort of that pile that on with because I'm in the UK, the time zone thing, you'll get the brief in the evening, you work in the evening, and you wake up to their changes that they'll want you to have done for the evening. So you end up working during the day, then through the night, then during the day and through the night. And then after 2 or 3 days, you're like, I don't even know if this is good anymore. I just need some sleep.
No, it can be very stressful. And I'll say this, that I start every project thinking it's not going to work. Every single project. Like, this is not going to work. I'm not going to be able to accomplish this.
It's nice to hear that.
Yeah, it's because I think that's just normal because you're creating something out of nothing for the most part. I mean, when we're doing a lot of songs, then but still the vibe, you're trying to create a new vibe.
Big time.
Trying to create something special. And so as soon as, when I get to the point where I'm like, this may work, then I know that I'm almost done. And I finish it. And then when I give it to him, like, that was crap. So as soon as I let it go, that thing's not going to work. I'll let myself go there again to be like, no, they're going to hate it. But I like that piece of music. I'm happy with it. Yeah. Right. But they're going to hate it, but I'm happy with where it ended. Like, I'm proud of what I put out. So that's going to be better on a release. I actually say that it's going to be better on a release because that helps me in that whole process of like whether they like it or not and whether it's going to be used. No, it's better on the release anyway. I'm glad I made that piece.
So that's a really great idea as well, so that you don't lose ideas to the wormhole of a custom, and then it goes to release. It gets given a new life.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Great idea. So I'm still going to dive into this. The nuts and bolts, right? So you've got your Bee Gees song, which I always think of Zoolander because of the Wallflowers cover they used in that. So you've got that. Do you sit down? Do you load up your I don't know, whatever it is, Logic? Are you still using Logic, or is it?
I didn't use Logic, yeah.
So you load up Logic. Do you load up a template? Do you load up a piano? What's the process from there?
I do have a template now that has like basic like strings that I always use, brass that I always use, percussion that I use like as a bass, like very like standard percussion that I know gives me like low hits that I know produce drama, like, whoa, something's happening kind of hits, and big slamming kind of hits. So there's certain things that I know I'm probably going to load in, and I keep those in the template. And then I used to start from nothing every time, but I found myself always loading the same strings, always loading the same brass. So I just keep those in. But I normally start with pads. Because I love pads. It's my favorite thing on earth. And it's like, I feel like I can have like the most, like I can make an instrument every time, and the most fun with creating an atmosphere with pads. And so I go through a great length to create my opening pads. Like, that's where a lot of my energy is spent, actually. Because if I can create a space and a feeling at the beginning, then immediately every time I press play, I'm like, yes, I'm there. And it's inspiring. It gives you something to go on. And at that point you're like, okay, we're going somewhere. This feels right. It feels like I'm in the right space. As long as I get that initial part where I feel like I'm at the beginning, creating something in the right space. It's very difficult. Sometimes clients are like, let's do the back end first. And I'm like, because you can create like a big back end, and I've done that multiple times, but it doesn't like put you there as much. like you want to like, at least for me, I want to create until like, yes, and then it pays off, not like it pays off and then let's create something for that beginning, so yeah, that's kind of my process.
So yeah, I'm totally with you on this. Well, as soon as you said the pads thing, I was like, it's the Bob Ross wash.
Yeah, exactly.
Start with the wash. It paints the picture. The way I see it when I do exactly the same thing. Act ones are my favorite. Act twos I love. Act threes, yeah, I'm okay with it.
By the time you're to act three, you're just like, just put more stuff in. Put more stuff in.
Exactly. Just give me some bigger drums.
Yeah.
So, I'm always thinking about those pads or those keys, whatever it is. They're the mountains in the background, right? They're the wash.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I'm totally with you there. Have you got? I can't remember who the guy who developed is. It's called photosynthesis. It's a contact instrument, and it's he.
I have to write it down.
Oh, what's his name? I tell you what, I'm just going to look it up now.
Okay.
Because it's amazing. There we go. Yeah, he's done 4 of them. Photosynthesis 1, 2, 3, and 4. I can't remember his name, but yeah, Jeremiah Pena, I think that's his name.
That was familiar.
And they're all like really beautiful post-rock pads. Like you play them immediately you go, oh yes, that's the business.
That's amazing.
Anyone
I'll have to look it up. That's awesome.
Do because like anyone who's expressed any interest or joy from pads, I'm always like, get photosynthesis.
Okay,
it's amazing. Yeah, really cool. As it's only like $30, I think, but yeah, I use it all the time. Photosynthesis is my go-to pad for the Act ones. I'm like, okay, this is the stuff.
Nice. Check it out.
Yeah, please do. See, yeah, loved hearing that. Now, I think we should dive into the quickfire round. This relates kind of directly to what we were just talking about, because loading up templates is all very good, but we all want to know what everyone else is using. Now, I know we started our conversation talking about going on like a sample library fast and just using what you can, what you have. But it's also, for me, I find it fascinating to realize that other people are using exactly the same things as me and making it sound vastly different.
Sure.
Often better, but at this stage, I think we're all gear nerds, really. We all want to know what everyone else is using. So I think you've answered some of these already, but well, definitely one of them. John, what is your door of choice? I don't mean wooden door, like DAW.
Oh, dog choice.
Yeah.
Yes, Logic. Of course.
Okay, awesome. Okay, your go-to. I think you cut out then, which.
Yeah.
Now, go-to piano library.
So, I have a sampled Malsmajo piano that I really like. But I don't know if I'm saying that right, but Malmsjo, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I've got that too. Malmsjo Grand Piano, or it's got a really bright sound, but it's just lovely. Wait, am I thinking of the same
You
one?
may have a different sample because mine's very dark.
Malmsjo Acoustic Grand. Yeah. When I say bright, I mean it like cuts through the mix really nicely.
Oh, yeah, fine. Yeah, I agree with that. So that one, but recently, actually, I bought the Una Corda that Contact put out or something.
Native Instruments. Was it Native
Instruments? That kind of like weird piano that one string or whatever each. That's been fun. But they have like felt piano and stuff like that. Piano is and like even like the Gentleman sounds really good, which is just a Contact whatever, but like sounds really good at like lower dynamics. There's like a sweet spot in I feel like in every instrument where you're like, instrument sounds really good there.
Yeah.
So, but I haven't really like nutted out too much on piano.
Now, I think you are not the first to actually mention the gentleman. Like,
Oh, really?
which is really interesting. For me, I play that and go, nope. Because, again, it's probably because, you know, when you open up a library, you immediately go to a certain velocity. It's usually
Yes.
around 70, right? Maybe 60.
Right.
And if the velocity sweet spot isn't there, I'm like, oh no, that's
Not buying.
that's it. Yeah. Whereas, like for me, Alicia Keys is my go-to, right? I love that. I love that library, and I'm usually around 40 or 50 on the velocities because that for me is where it's just like, this
That's
is
the play.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I'll check that one out too.
well, I'm gonna relook at the gentleman. I should be
just like peaceful.
Yeah.
It has really cool like these little like intricacies in when it's played really soft that like.
So I do like that with a lot of the libraries when you play them in the lowest velocities, when because I'm a big fan of hot miking anyway. So you'd hot mic it and then play it softly and then compress it so you get all the details of the sound. So which is basically the same when you're taking the lower velocities and then upping it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Next one, go to string library.
What kind of strings?
Okay, let's just go shorts.
The LA scoring strings.
Nice. Okay. And for soaring legatos.
Probably I use the one that I programmed. And then, but if I want this kind of like in-betweener kind of feel, I like add to it Cine strings or the LA scoring strings, just for that feel of like lift and stuff.
Okay, go to brass.
Also personally programmed stuff that I can't find a match to.
Nice. You need to start selling.
Brass too has some nuggets.
Yeah.
Brass is really hard in samples.
Yeah. See, I think sampled brass, I think trains composers to think that brass players play like that all the time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, horns, why aren't you playing cuivre? Why aren't you going crazy? That should be breaking up that tone. It shouldn't be so sweet and beautiful.
Yeah, I laugh with my engineer about this a lot because the sample orchestra is its own orchestra. It's not a possible orchestra. And if you think of it as its own thing, and it only exists in one medium, then when you go to record an orchestra, you're like, I'm getting an orchestra sound now, which is going to be different.
Yeah.
And has a different place in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Sample orchestra is actually very important in a lot of this music because a live orchestra cannot do.
No, unless you layer them repeatedly and
yeah, unless you just make them suffer and just like have all day to like let them.
That's it.
Which in London, I'm sure you have that ability because the brass in London is probably the best in the world. Yeah,
the brass in London is good. To be fair, the strings in London are pretty good. I laugh at this situation we're talking about where it's the difference between live strings and sampled strings, because actually some clients. So I started off in the advertising world. So some clients are used to hearing such enormous sounds.
Yeah.
So we go to one of the studios in London. I forget the name, but Angel. We go to Angel. We've got this lovely orchestra. We're playing this piece. And spend a huge amount of money recording this single piece. And I was producer at the time. I wasn't writing or anything, so I was running the session. And we take it out, and the engineer does this magical wizardry where he layers up the reverb to make it sound even bigger. And obviously, and even in the studio, it sounded massive in the studio. The client was there going, "Oh yeah, this is amazing. This is amazing." in the big studio speakers, and then they take them home and they listen to them in their work laptops or whatever, and their feedback was, can you layer this with more orchestra, please? Because it doesn't sound big enough. And I was like, well, you should have bought a bigger orchestra, guys.
Get more money? I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, I digress. So I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I'm quite interested. Go-to percussion.
You mean other than the live guy?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you're gonna probably laugh at this, but like Storm Drum 1, I use a lot. I layer Storm Drum, but because the of the spectrum that it fills in very, very easily and without a lot of added things, so that it creates a good base to kind of build like really layered percussion sounds. And there is, I don't know if it's from Storm Drum, but it's this taiko called Earthquake Taiko or something. I don't know. You know it?
I'm pretty sure that's Storm Drum 1. Storm Drum 1 was the first one I ever bought.
Yeah.
And their taikos in that library they blew my mind.
I think it's one of those like Okedo Taiko, like massive, 6-foot ones. And they recorded these really low velocity, like this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in my template, because that like creates this like sub, business that just kind of fills out the bottom. So this is kind of like, this plays really good place for like placeholders, where I don't have to spend a lot of thought energy into creating a percussive sound, but I know what I can temp it out, what the percussion is supposed to be doing, and get there really quick, so it doesn't really stand in way of me keep on producing the musical side or whatever. So I'm like, oh, the percussion's supposed to be doing this, ba 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 ba, kind of like, and I can live with it being kind of like wrong for a long time until the end, and then I make the percussion sound right, and sound better. But I can kind of live in that space longer, because I can almost like forgive the sample feel of it for longer.
See, I often sketch out the whole cue using just the big hits.
Yeah.
As that way to kind of like you say, the energy that you need to expend on creating. Also, I just want to put that John did air quotes when he said musical earlier on, just in case there's angry percussionists in the audience.
It's very musical. It's just music.
So yeah, okay, we're almost done now. Go to synth.
That's a very wide topic. What do you mean by synth?
We'll go pads, and then we'll go aggressive, like almost
like sequenced kind of thing.
What's that?
Like sequenced kind of.
Yeah. I thought you said sequins. Yes, I do.
The synths. So what are we starting with? Aggressive?
Let's go for the aggressive one.
But not like lead stuff.
Oh, so wow, we're going detailed here. So, okay, we'll go aggressive leads that we can use as signature sounds.
Sure. I find that Massive actually is really unique, actually, in what it produces when it comes to aggression, and like, and I really like a lot of those as bases to create sounds from Massive. And I'm going to circle back to this hardware synth that I got last year that I really like, but when it comes to software, I feel like that's a good starting point, like just because it produces this kind of like I don't know, cool buzz feeling. And then and a lot of stuff I'll try to create from like less aggressive sounds, and then aggro them up with a lot of effects and stuff.
Nice.
Just to create something interesting. But
we'll get on to that in a second. Okay, so we've got our aggressive signature sound. Now let's go for more sequency things that you might use as a driving element, or yeah, I'd say a driving element.
Sure.
So the
Yeah.
pulsing type of stuff.
Yeah. I use a lot the arpeggiator in Logic, which goes on top of the track, and then I create the sequence separately with another synth, so like ES2 or something, just with Logic, that I can kind of like a synth that's pretty wide range, but that is more simple. That the ES1 is, I mean, ES2 is good, and then the retro synth in Logic I like a lot too.
They've got that wonderful analog bass sound on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to arpeggiating, yeah, like I try to do that like almost separately, so that they're kind of like on two different. Well, some plugins like keep it all together, and they have like delay, and they have compression, and all this stuff. It's almost like too much. I like to go down to the simplest thing and then build it up myself, so I know what's going on.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Oh,
someone's doing some printing.
Hey, I have the same thing in the other room.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go with pads. Pads are, without getting too detailed into the synth world, go to pads. So for me, it's photosynthesis.
Yeah. I have always really liked sculpture. That's the Logic one. Mm-hmm. Again, because it's unique in the, I think, in the way that in its combination of different types of sounds and stuff. Mm-hmm. But over the past 2 years, I've developed a pedal board that I have for making pads, and so I run lots of different types of sounds into it, and then just like creates massive pads through that. But yeah. And then my all-time, well, I don't know if it's my all-time, but I definitely would probably take, I definitely would, I like how I said that, I definitely would probably, who knows, but it's the Peak, the Novation Peak.
Oh yeah.
Is a great little box, and it's kind of like a good crossover between a digital and analog world. And I've been using it just as a sound creator, and then send it through the pedal board.
Awesome. So I've always liked the idea of going back to the pedal board, but I know at the moment I go back to a pedal board, I will be basically emulating what I will be doing in Logic.
It's really actually not as much about the sound as about changing your environment and how you create. And I think that's a powerful thing too, is like to get your head out of a certain space in order to, it's the same reason that if I'm stuck on a silly classical piece, I like go to my ukulele and start playing something on my ukulele and like trying to figure something out, because it has to be deconstructed down to a very simple level in my mind in order to build it up to something that's supposed to be more complex.
Yeah, see, I was doing that very same thing earlier on today, focusing on sort of classical string heavy stuff. And I started on the piano just because I don't want to start with all the strings. There's too much choice. Just having the one thing.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Now this one, whenever I've asked this one, people have complained, but top 3 effects plugins.
Top 3 effects plugins. Like what I'd use the most?
Yeah. So for instance, I could give you my answer is probably Logic's default reverb,
Yeah.
Soundtoys
The bass designer.
Space Designer, yeah, Soundtoys Decapitator, and honestly, it's probably Logic's compressor. Like those are probably the three I use all the time.
Yeah.
Aside from more like functional things like a directional mixer or EQ, because I don't have any cool snazzy EQs like everyone else. I don't have the FabFilter EQs.
Yeah, sure. There's a reverb that it's in Reactor, but you have to take a Reactor a Reactor synth and mine it from the synth. So you have to take out the like the outputs to the reverb in the synth and delete the rest of the instrument and then just use it and then use it. So I've created this thing. I learned this technique from Klaus, and it sounds amazing. It's like this really long reverb, but it's like synthetic, but it feels so cool. And I use that like it's in my template. Yeah, the convolution reverb in Logic's great. But I really like the distortion in Logic is really good. Just the playing distortion. I use that in place of a compressor a lot of times. And then because you have that filtered, I mean like the frequency of in it, which I like. And it's really like simple. And then the tremolo in Logic is amazing too, because it's just so obvious what it's doing.
Yeah.
And it's just, you can like make it exact. So I'll like split stuff apart and make new sounds with that.
See, I do like to use that to emulate like a pulse. So you know how like Steve Wright, pop, 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 pop. So you kind of line up the waves. Use that all the time.
Wonderful little tool.
It is. And it's actually testament to that. Actually, sometimes the simplest plugins are the best. I think I get very overwhelmed when I load up a software plugin and there's knobs and windows everywhere and okay, so last one on the quickfire round, and then I can bid you adieu or good day. So, what's your number one piece of advice to write better trailer music?
I think that I'll go with my standard answer, which is one word, but then I'll given a reason why. It's listen. That is my one word. The reason is because that goes into every aspect of what you're doing. You need to listen to the client, exactly what they're saying. Like, it's very helpful to be someone who's like, and when I say listen, it's like, try to understand what is being said and why they're saying it. Even though they say something that sounds really stupid, like, I just want big drums. What does big drums mean to them? Like, why are they asking for big drums? What is that accomplishing for them? Like, why emotionally do they want big drums? Like, all these questions can come out of this very simple, silly statement. They want big drums or whatever. And then when it comes to writing, listen more than you write, because I think from the listening, that's where the inspiration comes. It's not from just like putting a bunch of music in. Oh, wow, this is amazing. And then I have a minor chord, and then I have a this, like, yes, it'll all be there, like your chords and everything, but just listen more, Don't be afraid of losing ideas because you didn't record them. Because there's plenty more where that came from, but you only have one chance to listen, or to hear something and to get that feeling of like being able to put something down. So it goes from everything from, the beginning when you need to make coffee and clean toilets or whatever. Listen, why do they want the toilet clean like that? Listen, they have a reason, hopefully,
because no one likes skid marks.
Their coffee prepared that way. Listen, it goes through all the way to this stage where, you at the dub stage, and you need to listen why it's not working, so.
Awesome advice, especially if you go and they need to listen to this podcast episode. Hey, there we go.
yes, tie it together.
Thank you very much. Good night. There we go. Yeah, John, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Really enjoyed it, and I always love hearing the story, especially the postman story. That was great. Okay, guys, there we go. There we have it. Thank you so much, John, for coming on for the interview. I had so much fun. Such a nice guy, so much insight, so much knowledge, and a very, very intuitive composer. A lot of respect for that man. As I said to him, I don't know whether it's actually in the interview or not, I can't remember, but, I've been a huge fan of his writing for a while. So yeah, it was a real pleasure to talk to him. I hope you guys got as much from that, hopefully more than me, but out of that interview as I did. And as ever, this podcast is brought to you by the Trailer Music School, where if you want to master the art of writing for film trailers, then head on over there and join the community. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen, guys. You are absolute legends, and I'll see you next week.